Greetings, Arisen. There's a rift in the Dragon's Dogma community between players who consider Dragon's Dogma 1 the superior gameplay experience and others who embrace Dragon's Dogma 2 as a worthy successor. I wanted to find out for myself which game I prefer overall, because I have a lot of nostalgia for Dragon's Dogma 1, but I also was extremely excited when Dragon's Dogma 2 was announced and enjoyed the game very much until I went online. I'm not a fan of rating systems, so I'm going to discuss the 4 main points of the game. 1, the story, 2, the combat, 3, the atmosphere, including the environment design and whatnot, and then 4, the pawn system. This is going to be a multi-part series, because there's a lot to discuss. And before we get into that, just a little bit of history of myself with the game. I'm an original player of Dragon's Dogma from 2012. My friend brought home an unlabeled blank box copy of the game. We played it for hours. I watched him play it, I played it. We beat it several times. It became one of my favorite games of all time just because of the depth of the story, the uniqueness of the combat mechanics, the goofiness of the game. Like, it was completely memorable and unlike anything I had played before, and it has still lived on in my memory to this day. You know, I love the game, I love the series, and I want it to succeed. And I keep going back to Dragon's Dogma over and over after all these years. Now, I didn't even know that a sequel was in development. I thought the franchise had been abandoned until there was a 10-year anniversary video. Itsuno made an announcement. We're celebrating 10 years of the game. They had an interview with the panel with the producer and the art director and Itsuno himself, and they discussed some things about the game and reminisced over the game. And then at the end of the video, I never thought I would say this about a man, but when he took off his jacket, I lost my mind, because underneath was a shirt that said Dragon's Dogma 2. I had no idea this was coming. So needless to say, I was stoked. But my expectations, they were tempered because I didn't want to be disappointed. I knew that my expectations were very high because of the game, so I was like, you know what? I'm just going to accept whatever it is, because more Dragon's Dogma is more Dragon's Dogma that I ever thought that I would have, so I ended up being happy with the game. And that mindset probably helped me appreciate the game a lot more than maybe some other people who were expecting certain mechanics to be included in the second game, but I still had a fondness for the first game, and in a lot of ways I still feel like it's superior. That said, I set out this year, before Dark Arisen comes out, I set out to play them side by side, start to finish, and compare their strengths and weaknesses. Obviously, I'm just doing the base games, I'm not doing Dark Arisen. I'll probably do a comparison of the 2 Dark Arisens once those come out, but I am playing through the original Dark Arisen. I just beat the Dark Bishop. Oh my gosh, dude, it took me forever. And I ended up going in with fewer pawns, and that made it easier. It was an accident, but it worked out in my favor, and I ended up beating him, so I'm happy for that. Now, if you've seen my other videos, I'm not going to retread the same ground in this video. There are so many things to compare that 18 item list is incomplete, especially because of this story. Let's get started with the story. So we'll start with the story of Dragon's Dogma 1. You create your character, and you start in your hometown of Casardis. It's a very grounded beginning. You're a fisherman, you're living your life, walking down the street, maybe picking up some groceries, and then all of a sudden, a dragon comes to attack your hometown. It manifests in the sky, crashes down on the beach, burns your neighbors and friends to a crisp, and you take up arms in a feeble attempt to defend your hometown from the dragon. Of course, the dragon throws you to the ground, takes your heart out, and consumes it, making you the Arisen, whose goal is to defeat the dragon. The main conflict in Dragon's Dogma 1 is the dragon. Every NPC you encounter along the path talks about how everything's going to turn to ash if the dragon can't be defeated.
What use is chasing after coin when the dragons come to turn us all to ash?
I wish that dumb dragon would die already.
Everybody talks about the dragon. It's on everyone's mind. Everyone's pushing you to go fight this dragon. It's the ultimate goal of the game, to go and defeat the dragon. There is also a complication in the story where the Cult of Salvation is interfering with the Arisen's plans to defeat the dragon for their own ends. They believe that the dragon will interrupt the cycle in a way where if they destroy everything, then no one is there to suffer. So death is the ultimate release for everybody, and therefore we need the dragon to come here and destroy everything without the Arisen interfering and trying to defeat the dragon. As we all know, the head of salvation is able to reach the dragon, climbs to the parapets, preaches his up-jumped zealotry, and is crushed by the feet of the dragon in a comical display. So that's the main conflict and the complication. Finally, there are 4 different endings. There's like some subset endings, but there are 4 different endings to Dragon's Dogma 1 that we need to take into consideration. Once you defeat the dragon, of course, the Everfall opens up in the middle of Grand Soren, and now your goal is to collect wake stones from the 16 replicated dungeons. Offer them to open a portal to the Seneschal. You discover that the Seneschal is the previous Arisen who defeated the dragon and was elevated to the point of being the World King, the one who oversees everything and ensures that the next Arisen completes their cycle and takes their place. If they aren't able to accomplish that, if they become a failed Arisen like the many we encounter in the game, the Seneschal's goal is to continue and help the next Arisen to do so. The Seneschal you encounter is actually tired of eternity. He's sick and full of it. He doesn't want it anymore. He wants you to prove that you have the will to destroy him so that he can be free at last from the curse of eternity.
At long last, I am free of eternity, of infinity, free of the cruel, unending ring.
So there are 4 different endings. One is that when you encounter the dragon the first time, you don't defeat them, but you sacrifice your beloved at the altar of the dragon in order to continue living, and then a new Arisen must be chosen. 2 is that you defeat the dragon, but when you confront the Seneschal, you fail and an next Arisen has to come and take your place. 3 is that when you're given the choice to either become the Seneschal or not, you decide not to, and you return to the simple life of illusion as a good fisher. And finally, 4, you defeat the Seneschal. You take their place on the throne. All you have to do now is become immaterial, walk around the world, and watch nothing happening. It's absolutely awful. So you begin to understand why the previous Seneschal was like, I can't do this. This is a curse. I remember the first time I played the game, I was like, what is this? Like, how do I get out of this? I wasn't sure what to do, and I was worried that this was it, that this was the end of the game and that I would be trapped in this form forever, not able to interact with the world, but only being able to watch it. You know, that's horrific. That is a cosmic nightmare. But you do have this thing called the Godsbane in your inventory, so you can choose to sacrifice yourself, and that's like the true ending of the game. If you sacrifice yourself, then your body falls through all the planes of existence into your pawn, and your pawn spirit enters your body, and they are now given a life and a will. So that's like how the transfer happens, the impartation of the will, where the pawn now has a will of their own. But there are 2 major problems that I had with the Dragon's Dogma 1 story that always bothered me. The first one is that when you become the Seneschal, if you wander around, you can't interact with anything. You can pick NPCs up and you can like throw them and stuff, but you can't like fight anything. You can't leave the towns. You can only visit the main towns and walk around and jump and get in the water and stuff. There's nothing to do. But if you venture far enough into the water, the brine takes you. Now, this could be one of 2 things. Either 1, it is an important lore reason that is never explained, so it's essentially like a plot hole. Like, I thought the Seneschal was supposed to be, the god of the earth or whatever, the most powerful being who oversees everything and oversees the next Arisen coming about. Why are they eaten by the brine? I thought that this person was immaterial. And the second thing that bothered me was that there's no end. Once your pawn becomes human, that's it. The cycle continues. Assumedly, another dragon would be born and another Arisen would be chosen, and the cycle would continue ad infinitum. There was no end to the game. It was like, okay, well, I guess this is just an endless game. Now that's okay, but I like games that have a restorative resolution, and this is where Dragon's Dogma 2 comes in. There is no way that Dragon's Dogma 2 can be considered a remake with the way that the story is presented. DD2 was written specifically for the fans of DD1, people who understood the story of Dragon's Dogma 1, took it to heart, and actually really liked it, really loved it, and the way that things played out, and wanted more. For every step that the story takes in Dragon's Dogma 2, even though in some areas it might be underdeveloped on the surface level, on the back end, the writing, I think, is actually quite complex. And what I love about it is that they don't retread the same ground in any aspect of the story. You think they're going to, and then they subvert your expectations, and that's what I love about it. So there were the three things. There was the beginning, the conflict, and the resolution, the endings. In Dragon's Dogma 2, the beginning is completely different. Whereas in DD1, you're grounded in Casardus as your home, in DD2, you are a vapor. You are assumed to be a pawn, as a slave working on the volcanic island, and no one recognizes you as the Arisen. So it sets off some immediate flags. You're like, wait, what? What happened here? How am I already the Arisen? Where's the dragon? Like, what's going on here? Who is interrupting the cycle? The cycle has changed somehow, but why? So the beginning is different. And then the conflict is different too. The conflict in the game is not the dragon in Dragon's Dogma 2. The main conflict of the game is presented as the false Arisen in Vermund. The one who took the throne is claiming to be the Arisen and has the powers of the Arisen, but is not the Arisen. You barely even see the dragon. You only see the dragon in a flashback. And he's like, I took your heart. Here, you're Arisen. We got that. We got that out of the way. Let's keep going with the story. And it's the same with the NPCs. You're not being pushed to go fight the dragon the whole game like you are in Dragon's Dogma 1. Like, the dragon isn't a massive threat compared to the first game. And it gives the impression that there is a deeper and more complex threat hiding underneath the surface. As you go through the story, of course, you realize that the Seneschal has been unseated, that rather than being seated in the heavens overseeing everything, they have been bound under the earth until they can be defeated by an Arisen. When you speak to Rothas in the seafloor shrine at the foot of his throne that's supposed to be up in the heavens, like in the first game, there's this red glow that's like keeping him there. The same red glow that you see when the brine takes you in the water. And after you talk to him and he gives you the dulled Godsbane blade, of course Talos begins to awake. A defender that is empowered by the brine itself to destroy. So as you go through the story, you uncover the plot of the God Sway and the staff. You defeat Talos, so you finally catch up to Phasis, and it turns out he's trying to summon the dragon in the same way that Salvation was going to. He thought he was going to interrupt the cycle. He thought he was going to enter destruction upon the land so that the cycle couldn't be completed. So his goals were the same as Salvation's goals. When the dragon appears and crushes Phasis, he offers you the same choice. And here we come to the potential endings for the game. The first one, of course, is again to take the dragon's bargain and return to an empty throne. He presents your beloved to you and you can decide, nah, I don't care, just give me my throne. And then you end with like this sad cutscene of you sitting in the throne room like depressed. The second ending is, of course, to defeat the dragon, and by doing so you become the king of Vermund. You have this great celebration, they're holding a feast for you, the credits roll, everything is so happy and delicious. And that could be it. That could be the end, and then it takes you to the menu screen. But if you're not happy with that, then there are several other endings. The third ending is, at the feast, of course, you don't sit at the throne, but you see the Pathfinder in the crowd and speak to them. Now, the Pathfinder has, of course, been with you throughout the entire game, giving you tips, kind of affecting the way that people react to you, in order to guide your path in the direction that they want it to go. They want you to complete the cycle. They want you to defeat the dragon. It's their will that's controlling you this entire time. But if you confront the Pathfinder, they take you back to the dragon. And if you use the Godsbane to interrupt the cycle, then you and the dragon both fall down into the ocean. And what takes you? The red tendrils of the brine. And when you wake up, you're not in the throne room of a heavenly court like you were with the Seneschal. No, you're deep below the depths of the sea, surrounded by darkness instead of light. And who stands before you but the Pathfinder with a choice? He manifests your most favorite NPCs next to you, and it's very creepy. He tells you that the illusion of the world that he has created is beautiful, and that you have to live in line with his plan, or be destroyed. You reject that, and he therefore unmakes the world and takes you to the unmoored world. So your denial of the throne sets him off. Now from here, there are several other endings. Once you're in the unmoored world, if you fail to complete it within the time limit, then you essentially become the old man with the boat, where you're powerless to control anything and you're stuck in the cycle until someone is able to complete it. The second is when you die, you can choose to give up and it'll take you to the menu screen where you can start a new game. Third is like a partial success, where if you're not able to save everybody in the in-game missions, then you don't get a complete cutscene at the end of the game. Now the final, of course, good ending, the true ending, is that you succeed in saving everybody and you defeat the dragon. So once you complete all those red beacons, then you fight this cursed dragon that's like the manifestation of the will of the Pathfinder, and it seems like you're powerless to defeat it. You know, it's too strong. But something special happens. Because of the lack of influence that the unmoored world has on your pawn, they begin to manifest a will of their own. Through their time with the Arisen, they are able to make their own choices now, and they transform into the form of a drake and attack the cursed dragon, helping you in the charge, and you're able to plunge the God's Bane or the God's Sway into the dragon's heart and end the cycle entire. And I think that this is able to happen because the unmoored world, the purpose of the unmoored world is the world as it truly is. You know, where else do all the monsters come from? Why does the brine exist? Everything actually looks like the unmoored world in reality, but the brine is like keeping it together in this false cycle. The reason why I think this is the superior ending is because you're able to restore everything. The game gives you a montage of all of the NPCs that you encounter throughout the game, and them living in peace, them returning to their lives, and you're like, okay, you know, the cycle is reborn, the cycle is anew, everything is starting over, but it's not. Because the final cutscene reveals the truth. It shows the old man getting into the boat and going into the sea. If you've talked to him before, you know that he said anybody who tries to sail in a boat, and you see all the boats around the world are crashed upon the shore, you know, nothing is able to be used. He can't go sailing because the brine will consume you. But he's able to sail out into the ocean, and it shows him going further and further and further away without interference from the brine, indicating that the brine is no longer in the sea. This reveals that the true nature, the true enemy of the game, of course, was the brine. The Pathfinder was the brine. The old man said that he spoke with the brine and told him essentially to F off. I'll die as many times as I want.
An old man with naught, sailing out into a sea of naught, and dying for naught. Where's the harm in that? When I said as much to the brine, they only stared at me in amazement. A lie, it may all seem, but 'tis the honest truth. I've beheld it all with my own eyes.
So it all makes sense. It brings the story of Dragon's Dogma together, because the biggest plot hole in the first game was, what the heck is the brine? There's no explanation for it. Everyone just accepts that it exists. It must just be a gameplay mechanic, because otherwise it doesn't make any sense. But in the second game, it is the main enemy. It's the main conflict. It's the main will that is overseeing everything, because the Seneschal is bound by the brine's will itself. And then you go down into the ocean, you meet the manifestation of the brine's will, the Pathfinder, who has been guiding you through the game the entire time, and you decide, well, no, I'm not subjecting to this, and you defeat the brine. The brine is defeated and the world is restored. It is a true and beautiful ending to the Dragon's Dogma series. I mean, I'm sure they can make more games. If Capcom wants to make more games, they can, but this is a great ending, and I love it because it's restorative, it's subtle, it's complex. You know, when I played the game the first time, I didn't really think about these things very deeply, and I don't think I really understood what it was pointing to until I played the first game side by side with it. After playing the first game, I'm like, oh, this makes so much sense. This is a perfect continuation of the story that brings it to its final end, that brings it to this realm in particular. I know they're like multiple stacked universes or whatever, but this one in particular was free from the corrupt will of the brine, was free from the broken will of the seneschal, and pawns are now able to become human. Like, this is freedom. This is a story about freedom, about how we can't make our own reality. Like, even if you become the seneschal, you can't do much. You can't undo the brine. You can't restore things 100% to beauty and light. You don't even have the power to do that as the seneschal. So what's the point? That means that the cycle is perpetuated by some dark entity that is the true enemy. So overall, the purpose of the games are different. They're two sides of the same book. The first game, of course, establishes the Arisen's capability within the cycle and the inescapability of the cycle, and it becomes clear that no matter what you do, you can't escape from it. Many have tried, many have failed. Even the Dark Arisen DLC, which expands upon the lore, goes into this a little bit, where an Arisen attempts in a very twisted and corrupt way to interrupt the cycle. It catches up with them. There's no way to escape it. And of course, even the lyrics to the main theme establish the eternal return. In the game, it's referenced as a ring, an unending ring of worlds that just continue in the same perpetual cycle. How do we interrupt it? You can't. That's kind of the conclusion of everybody. But the second game, the entirety of the second game is about freedom. A lot of the side quests are about freeing yourself from what is expected of you. Even though I wish it were more developed a little bit, I love the coral snakes subplot, because you find this kid who's like trying to care for his brother or whatever, and he's working for this really sketchy organization, stealing from people along the road. He's a bandit, he's a paid bandit. And then the Arisen goes, they find the coral snakes, they storm their base, and then that boy is betrayed by his leader, and Hugo is jailed, and all he wants is to have revenge on the leader, Lonzo. But you can prevent Hugo's death from happening by defeating Lonzo yourself and then coming back to Hugo, freeing him from jail, paying off his fine and everything, and setting him up with a job, interrupting the cycle of thievery and killing in order to give him true freedom in his life, because he's like trapped in this thing. In the first game, I wanted so badly for the Arisen to find some way out of the cycle. I was like, when your body comes down with your pawn and it's like flashing and stuff, I was like, what is this? This isn't what I wanted. I just end myself and then my pawn becomes me. Like, that's kind of like a letdown ending. It's not very satisfying. There's no victory there. It's just kind of depressing, and it sends you back into the endless cycle. It's really sad. But I love that the second game improves upon that. It shows that there is a way, that there is a true enemy, and that it does require a relinquishing of control in order to defeat them. Like, the Arisen's will was not enough. It wasn't powerful enough to make the world, and it only ends in its unmaking. This Arisen that you play in Dragon's Dogma 2 values mortality, that they want to bring peace. It is death that gives life meaning and value. The Arisen sacrifices themselves when they stab the cursed dragon. Everything dies at once. You kill the cursed dragon, which kills the brine, which kills your pawn, assumedly, and it stabs you and kills you. But everyone else lives. It's the Arisen's sacrifice that gives the world an opportunity to call itself home.